Right. So we're recording this to be uploaded to our YouTube channel, psychologyatwork.blog, if it's good enough. Or maybe I'll lose my voice halfway through this presentation, and then there'll be not much to record. Excellent. How to get a job in the Big Four Consultancy. So Big Fours are like EY, Deloitte, PwC, and KPMG. So they were classically accountancy firms, but recently they really went for occupational psychology market. So now you can find a lot of Occ Psych jobs for companies like EY. They're hiring like crazy, and we'll definitely cover how to break into the job market within the big corporates. The good news is more and more companies are seeing the value of occupational psychology. What to put on a resume, intro into occupational psychology is what it offers basically. Yeah, I've been asking myself this every morning. Well, maybe not every morning. Practical challenges. How to get a job without a master's. Yep, you can. First and foremost, I know a couple of people who got jobs in occupational psychology, learning and development, and HR, and then later went for the master's in OP. I would also suggest, if you're considering a master's, look for scholarships, because a lot of universities offer scholarships for MSCs and Occ Psych. And there's also a BP, British Psychological Society fund, which can be used to help you with sponsorship, as far as I understand. So look for also finance. Personal statement or CV building. Yes, we'll cover that. It's just my main advice would be, don't start your cover letter with "I'm passionate about psychology," because 90% of cover letters start with that sentence. So it doesn't differentiate you that much. Companies that are known to hire a lot of Occ Psych students, absolutely, we have a list, and offer graduate jobs. Certification in IO, perfect. So would anybody like to unmute and share with us what they wrote down, or what stands out for them from what they're seeing?
So as an international student, in UK or in other places, there aren't many roles that are available, because your CV or your application gets negated the minute you say that you're an international student, even though now you get the sponsorship for +2 years and you don't actually need the companies to sponsor you. So that's the major obstacle that international students face. So do you know any companies which go beyond the name of international students? Or how do we approach as international students to go about this? Because honestly speaking, it's really demotivating for people like us who've come all the way leaving their countries in aspiration to get some kind of exposure here.
Not to mention, sometimes you even pay higher fees, as far as I understand.
Yeah, let's not go there.
No,
We pay almost twice the amount.
So leaving your
Yeah.
country, paying almost twice the amount for the education, and then
Yeah.
being discounted for jobs.
Yeah.
That's not a great combination.
Yeah, that's the worst combination, honestly speaking.
I would say that I know quite a few international students who got jobs in
Mm-hmm.
UK, so it's not impossible.
Yeah.
I would say that sometimes smaller consultancies might not be able to sponsor a visa just because of their size, and that it might take 6-7 months for them to apply for sponsorship and to get it. So first of all, I would just check out the Occ Psychs, because as far as I understand, there's a list of organizations which do sponsor visas in UK.
Perfect.
And it might be Home Office or something like that. I would just search for it. And then organizations which sponsor visas shouldn't have too much of a problem. They're already on the list. I would potentially go for bigger companies as well, because bigger companies have immigration departments. So to them, it doesn't particularly matter. They have an immigration department. It's not their headache. They'll just outsource it to a specific department specializing in this. And the key thing, I would say, just answering a few of those questions, is how do you break into the Big Four? job market, how to stand out. The key thing is that to remember, most students don't do anything to stand out. Most students will start looking for jobs at the end of their degree. And most graduates will write, I'm passionate about psychology. And therefore, ironically, there's a lot of graduates in Occ Psych. So when you look around, you go, oh my God, how can I stand out from this? Hundreds of Occ Psychs. Actually, ironically enough, it doesn't take much. You already came to this event, you searched it out, you came, you attended, you're connecting with each other. I would highly recommend you to do the following. So one of the things not to do is quite often people come to consultancies or say, I want a job in Occ Psych. And you ask them, what sort of job do you want? And they go, any job. I just want a job. Well, that doesn't really play in your favor because what a person might be doing, let's say there might be a psychometric consultancy or leadership development, they might take it close to heart. So when you show indifference, it doesn't really score you a lot of brownie points. So what I suggest, especially if you're a student right now, or even a graduate, write down what you're really passionate about as far as Occ Psych, what really gets you going. Like if you could have a dream job, what would it be, kind of thing. So I'm just gonna find the right slide. What's the biggest challenge? Yeah, here's a badger. So right now, whatever it is, doesn't matter how geeky you might think it is. If you can write down what you find most interesting in Occ Psych, like could be human factors, could be occupational psychology generally, could be anything. Assessment and selection and psychometrics. Brilliant, because this is the places where often have jobs. We already have SHL being mentioned earlier, because when times are good, people use psychometrics for development and L&D workshops and coaching. When times are bad, there's a lot of applicants, so it's used for sifting. So it's quite a resilient provider of jobs. Talent management also, and strategic, conducting research, fantastic. Human factors of HR, wow, that's a very interesting one. Would anybody like to unmute and share with us what they find most interesting?
Improving well-being and mental health at the workplace.
Fantastic. So what do you particularly find interesting about it?
Just being able to make a difference and make people live better lives and be more happy.
Fabulous. I highly recommend you check out Affinity at Work.
Yeah, I highly recommend this. I'm just applying there now, actually.
Fabulous. They have
Great
an
company.
internship and it's
Yes.
brilliant. But this is going back to another point used, what to search for jobs in psychology. If you type in well-being on LinkedIn, it might give you a lot more roles than even occupational psychology. So look for those specific things. So all of this, what comes up right now on the screen, you can use as keywords to look for on job boards and to find it. Another key thing I would really advise you to do is check out LinkedIn for people who already do this. And just drop them a lot, like go into LinkedIn and type in for search, occupational psychology, well-being, occupational psychology, human factors, occupational psychology, consulting, and find people who already do this and just write them a message. Hi, Deborah. I noticed that you are a specialist in psychometric assessment. I find psychometrics fascinating and I would love to explore how it is in the real world after university. Would you have any top tips, or would you be free for a quick chat to discuss? People love to talk about their work, but the key thing in LinkedIn messages, please don't leave the text blank. I do that myself sometimes, so I do have to admit, but put something down that shows that you read their profile. So it's not what you do I find interesting. Write down that I find psychometrics fascinating, or well-being, or sports psychology, or risk assessment. And most people will be happy to chat to you because people love to talk about their work and themselves. That's probably most of the reasons why occupational psychologists have a job. So
Can I ask a question?
absolutely, iPhone 3.
Sorry, I'm Melanie. I'm sitting in someone else's office and I'm trying to. I don't think I've got all the functionality of this meeting, so I'm just jumping in. I wanted to ask. I'm clearly a mature student, so I've got pretty much 30 years of work experience in marketing communications, and I also worked in L&D for the Foreign Office for a couple of years. Could you advise me on how I'm not a graduate level starting job, and I think, and I've looked at those roles, but I'm not going to be picked. It seems I'm not going to be picked up at that level. What would be the best approach to pitch my combination of skills and experience in the field of L&D and in the field of psychometric testing? Because I see myself in a working in a psychology related either L&D and or business development role, organizational development.
So
because I know when I'm applying online, I'm getting nothing.
Absolutely. Second career of psychs, it's a real struggle, and you're not alone, because university MSc treats you as a blank slate. It doesn't necessarily give any credibility to any previous experience you have. And it's very difficult because also an MSc in occupational psychology can be highly confusing because they give you a taster of like 8 things, and then they go, make a decision what you want to do for the rest of your life, or stay in academia, then we can help you, or go to the big wide world and do chartership, whatever it is. So with second careers, what we have is that we do actual meetings specifically for second careers in Occ Psych, and we record them. So they're on YouTube. So we have already 3 events uploaded. There's going to be a 4th. So if you go to YouTube and type in psychologyatwork.blog, we have a channel, and you have now there at least like close to 12 people sharing their journeys from different backgrounds, how they transitioned into Occ Psych. And
can I just get psychologyatwork.com?
Oh, .blog.
On
I just put
YouTube.
it into chat.
Okay. So I can't see that. I'm on a phone. I don't
right.
know.
Yeah. So if you go to YouTube right now and just type in psychologyatwork.blog, one word, and it should pop up. We have also there about 12 interviews with people working in different fields with an Occ Psych degree, be it assessment, well-being, etc., engagement. So it also might be worth taking a look.
Okay.
But I would say with your experiences, find people who see value in it. So for example, if you worked in communication and marketing, I would also check out employer branding consultancies. If you worked with, you said the Foreign Office, so that's civil service.
Yes.
So I would also check out companies like Gatenby and Sanderson, who work a lot with the civil service.
Sorry, say it again.
Gatenby and Sanderson. They're just looking for a psychologist, and they're really receptive to second careers from what I'm hearing. So it's basically finding the consultancies that sees the value in your experience. And if they don't see the value, you don't want to work with them.
Yeah, I just find sending online, I think the algorithm's spitting me out before I've even started.
Exactly. So in that case, what I would do is that I would reach out to consultants in that company directly via LinkedIn before applying.
Okay.
Say, look, I'm thinking of applying to Gatenby. Would you have any words of advice? Or I'm thinking of applying to EY. And because there's a motive for them as well. Because if they refer you internally, such as put your CV in on your behalf, and you get a role, in some companies, they get a cash reward for it of several £1,000s.
Okay. Okay.
So when you reach out to people in companies, it's in their interest too. So everybody wins. It's not like you're inconveniencing anybody.
All right. Thank you.
But yeah, just and with psychometrics, business development, they're always hiring. Business development and consultancies, there's always roles. And that's another key thing, that as a graduate, psychology is a vocation in the traditional sense of the word. It's a lifelong affair. So what's really important here is that don't worry if your first job doesn't have Occ Psych in it. Really don't. It could be business development. It could be learning development coordinator. It could be HR starting position. Really doesn't particularly matter. You'll kind of grow into it and develop. So just look around for what's relevant and interesting to you.
Mm. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, and if you're interested in psychometrics, join geeky groups on LinkedIn.
Sorry?
So join geeky groups on LinkedIn. So if you're interested in psychometrics, join the psychometrics forum on LinkedIn. So it's a group all about psychometrics, and same with people who said human resource, human factors, etc., or behavioral indicators, or leadership development, diversity and inclusion. Look for groups on LinkedIn which are about this and join them, because the aim of this is not to look at the wall of the group because it's just filled with advertising. The key thing is look at members who also joined this group. And if you're members of the same group on LinkedIn, you could message each other directly, even if you're not connected, without gold membership. So look at LinkedIn for those groups, and then just look for the members in those groups. And whoever sparks your interest, just contact them. Just have a chat. And also with our webinars, with a second career in Occ Psych, contact the speakers as well. If any of them resonate, they're happy to connect.
Thank you.
That's all right. And I wish you the best in your search. And I'm sure you'll find somebody who sees the value in your experience.
Yes, I just need to meet them rather than just be spat out by an algorithm.
Well, yes, because no algorithm can do justice to your career when the algorithm is suited for graduates with potentially no experience.
Mm. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Any more questions or thoughts while looking at this? All right, so now what we can explore is okay, so what is the biggest challenge to you right now? So we know what you want, be it assessments or psychometrics or development, but from your perspectives, what is the biggest challenge you're facing in order to get that role or to go into that part of the field?
Hello.
Yes.
I am Ediz Deniz from Turkey, and the biggest challenge for me right now, not knowing where to go. And I'm from Turkey, and in Turkey, unfortunately, there are not lots of opportunities for industry and organizational business psychologists because the title is not used often, and usually people who have master's degree in organizational psychology work in human business positions.
Yeah, that often happens.
Yeah,
it's like the responsible thing to do after you get your degree.
Yeah.
Though I actually noticed a bit more activity on the Turkish market recently.
Yeah, we are getting better, I guess.
Exactly. So I would suggest look for companies that are hiring Occ Psychs, even if it's not a perfect role fit for you right now, still contact them and say, look, I find it great you're doing Occ Psych in Turkey. And I know this role might not be perfect for me, but I would still really like to have a chat with you guys.
Yeah.
And just building those relationships. And oh, here's another thing. If you do have a chat with anybody you meet, I would always recommend at the end of the conversation, ask them if there's anybody else that they think you should talk to, because they already know what you're about and what you're looking for. And that question helps them to activate their networks and make introductions. And whenever you ask about opportunities in Occ Psych, quite often I get messages, do you have an internship? Personally, I don't. But if you ask a question, have you heard of any opportunities in Turkey, for example, or have you heard of any internship opportunities, can be quite helpful. And also do consider following Psych Talent. So it's a hashtag we created on LinkedIn for any Occ Psych jobs. And I've seen over the last couple of months jobs in Turkey as well. And this is a hashtag for any Occ Psych jobs or L&D or HR. Oh, but is that helpful, or I didn't answer your question?
Yeah, it's helpful.
Oh, and when looking for occupational psychologists in your area, look for occupational, organizational, and business psychologists. And you can just select the area on LinkedIn in the search button. Being a graduate, would anybody else like to share their issues?
Hi. So I'm currently in my final year of psychology. And I think the biggest struggle I found is that all the roles at least need like a few years of experience, or you need an MSc.
Yep.
And as someone who's just entering the occupational psychology field, I'm not sure 100% if I want to go down that way. So I don't want to invest in a master's and then not want to do that anymore. So I find it really hard to, even in an interview, when they ask, do you have any experience? It's like, no, but I have passion. So I think that's my biggest struggle.
That makes perfect sense. And it's very annoying because when you look at this entry-level role and it requires experience, it's not that much of an entry-level role. And it can be really frustrating. And then you're basically stuck in a catch-22. You need to have experience to make a decision if Occ Psych is the right way to go. But you need that experience to get that job.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience at all? Have you worked anywhere, volunteered anywhere?
Well, I did a placement year last year in HR at Vodafone. But I've tried to.
So you did a year placement, right?
Yeah.
So you have 1 year experience of working in HR at Vodafone.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah, but I just found that like, even if I go into an interview, it's like, but what particularly in occupational psychology, or like, it's not enough experience because it was just a very broad role. And it's like,
well, that's wonderful. And again, this is going back to the point that if people can see the value in your experience, you don't necessarily want to work with them.
True.
And it's great you had a broad experience of HR. Any consultancy would be lucky to have you, because for most Occ Psych consultancies, the client base is HR, and you had experience from the other side.
Yeah.
From the client's perspective, and that's fantastic. I mean, what is there anything at all that stands out for you from occupational psychology, or how you want to use your degree?
I think from my year last year in HR, I found that sometimes just in HR practices, that human aspect is really missing, and that caring for employees, and that bridging the gap between business decisions and an employee's cycle in their career. So I find bridging that gap really interesting, and how, as from a psychology perspective, we can help employees and businesses.
That sounds a very eloquent way to put it, why you're interested in Occ Psych to me.
Yeah.
So it's basically how you can treat people as individuals.
Yeah.
rather than as human resources.
Yeah.
No, no, I mean, that's wonderful. And so it's more kind of well-being, talent strategy potentially.
Yeah.
I would apply potentially to graduate schemes in big corporates if I was you, like EY,
Yeah.
because you have graduate schemes which in a big organization, which have Occ Psych departments might lead you there.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're in UK, there's civil service fast stream as well. So if you're a graduate level and you're not quite sure about MSc, but you find the role overall interesting,
Yeah.
I would also consider applying just to graduate schemes
Mm-hmm.
and in big organizations and see how it plays out. Because the key thing is that at the end of the day, when you're applying and getting rejected, it's easy to forget, but it's you who has the final word. If when a
True.
job offer is made, you can either turn it down or accept.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be still worth trying.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's and rejection is so hard to deal with.
Definitely.
But I can tell you one little story about rejection. Hopefully it will make you feel better. So when I graduated in my MSc, my MSc was study of trust between pilots, between captain and first officers based on new pilot license. So interviewed captains and first officers. And there was a job coming up in the British airline for a junior assessor. So working assessments, junior position. And I thought it would be perfect. So I got to the last stage of selection. I was actually then living in Switzerland because I was working with kids with special needs. I realized it was just kids and I had special needs, but that's a different story. And then what happened is that I was taken to flight by this airline to UK for the final stage interview. So I was like, brilliant. I did 3 hours of psychometrics, passed them all. Then they got me to an interview. And when asked, what's the difference? Can you explain in layman's terms validity and reliability? For some reason, I couldn't think of a better example that studies that shows correlation between wearing high heel shoes and schizophrenia. Probably not the best example. Anyways, I didn't get the job, but I asked if they gave me the best feedback, and that allowed me to get a job at SHL. After 6 applications to SHL, so I was rejected 6 times, 7 times I got in. So do apply to the same place several times. But anyways, after I got a job at Hographa, and I couldn't dream of a better job. And a few years later, I was sitting at the dinner table at a conference, the Division of Occupational Psychology. And I realized the person next to me was the person who got that job as a junior assessor in that airline. So I turned to them and I said, you must have the best job in the world. You must be profiling pilots. You must be flying everywhere. You must get the choice of any psychometric you want because it's high consequence environment, so they need the budget. And they look at me like, you know, I'm a bit crazy, and I get that sometimes. And she goes, what makes you think this is my job? And I go, right, what is your job? And she goes, I profile middle management. I have no access to flight crew. I don't get to choose what assessments I use. Why do you think this is what I do? And then I realized the job that I didn't get, about which I've been crying into my pillow for days, never existed. I imagined what that job was. And what I felt lost for by being rejected was my imagination. The thing never existed. And actually, in retrospect, I feel that I dodged a bullet. Because sometimes these jobs we get rejected from never existed. We imagine what the jobs are. And sometimes it's good we don't get them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It's refreshing to hear that.
And like in retrospect, of course, it's easier to say after you get the job and look back, I couldn't have wished for a better role, really. Like none of the hundreds of roles I applied for could have ever played out as well as that one did. So I wouldn't, rejections are not necessarily a bad thing, but I would always, always say, ask for feedback, always. And also connect with people on LinkedIn who interviewed you.
Yeah,
Because you have no idea how it will play out.
definitely. Thank you for sharing that. It was a good to hear because not many people talk about their rejections or their failures. So thank you.
Oh, I got rejected so many times. It was not funny. I mean, oof. But that's the key thing. If I did something differently this time, it would be making those connections, reaching out, standing out from the competition. I would also engage with the posts other people are making. I would update my LinkedIn, just saying, look, I'm looking for a job, graduate looking for a job in well-being. And just, I'd be really honest about the about me section, like, be it your personal experience, as you mentioned that, I guess, how do I pronounce your name? Saida?
Yes, Sayada.
Sayada.
Yeah.
So Sayada, like, I guess your undergrad is in psychology. So I would say, like, by studying psychology in my undergrad, by doing an HR placement for a year experience in HR is fantastic. I kind of came to realization that we could treat people, more as individuals and everything that you talked about before, and just put it in there so people know what you're about. So
Yeah.
when they look at your profile, it's quite clear.
Yeah.
Also, when did your placement finish?
So last summer.
Last summer. Are you still in touch with anybody from there?
Yeah.
Excellent. Ask them to provide you a recommendation on your LinkedIn.
Okay.
So you can go to recommendations part and say, ask for a recommendation and just request it. Because that will kind of reinforce your profile a bit more. Anything else on your mind at this point?
No, thank you for that. It was really good to hear and some good advice.
One does try. Oh, and by the way, psychologyatwork.blog has a mentoring program. So we have over 100 mentors. So if you fancy getting yourself a mentor, and the way it works is that if you register on our site, psychologyatwork.blog, at the bottom, there's an email. You can enter your email. If you put down your email, around July, you'll get an email. I said email far too many times in the last couple of sentences. You'll get the email, yes, message saying that registrations are open for mentees. So you can come in and write down what you want out of a mentor. So what particular field, be it well-being, psychometrics, human factors. And then what we do, we find somebody for you out of our pool. They must have at least 4 or 5 years experience in this particular field. And we pair you up via LinkedIn and all encourage you to have a monthly call with each other. And this is completely free. So, and though we encourage you to have a master's, but you can still register with BSc as well. And we'll try to find you somebody who also potentially went into Occ Psych without an MSc.
Thank you so much. I'll check that out.
Absolutely. And yeah, so we do try to make this journey a little bit more bearable. So any other questions or thoughts before we move on to the next slide? Oh, Tenny, can you just unmute yourself, because that's a fantastic point.
Hey, yeah, I got 2 points actually I wanted to talk about. Number one is, I guess like most of the people here, my biggest struggle is not getting interviews. So I've been applying for a couple of months now, and I had one interview, but actually that wasn't the job I really liked anyway. And I actually got the job, but I rejected it myself because it wasn't just the right job for me. I just wanted to practice my interview. That's why I went. So yeah, I feel like I'm applying and I feel quite invisible at this point. Like, yeah, I guess I'm just being rejected automatically, maybe because of lack of experience. And I've been even applying for internships, for unpaid internships as well. And I also didn't hear back anything from them. So that was quite disappointing, because I think like if I can't even get like, unpaid internship, what else can I do? I've been thinking maybe to like do some charity work. So maybe if anyone here, maybe you can advise me if there are any places that I can do any charity work on associated with organizational psychology. That would be great, or maybe some other advice regarding that. And my other struggle is a bit lack of confidence. So because I don't have the experience and I mean, I have experience in like office administration and being an office manager, but not exactly in HR or organizational psychology. I feel like maybe what I've learned from university and how it actually looks like in the real world, like at work in practice, is different. I have a bit of anxiety. I'm a bit afraid that I might not be like good enough. If I get the job, it might turn out that maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm a bit afraid that real life might be different than, you know, academic.
Absolutely. So first of all, it's challenging because for the jobs you want, you don't get interviews, and for the job you don't want, you got the job.
Yeah.
So that's quite a stretch there. I would suggest consider contact a few people who work in Occ Psych and send them your CV and cover letter for review.
Okay.
Or so maybe there's something you're not putting there, or something that kind of puts people off. We don't know yet. So asking for a bit of feedback.
Right.
Also,
Yeah.
as far as doubt, if you're good enough, it's brilliant you have this. It shows you're professional. It's people who completely don't doubt themselves and think they're right and know everything. Those people you really need to watch out for. And honestly, people don't expect you to really know anything after an MSc in Occ Psych, because it gives you little tasters of different disciplines in our field, human factors, assessment, etc. It doesn't give you depth of knowledge. And people know that. It's just as long as you actually genuinely interested in the area that the consultancy works in, or an organization, or the role specializes in, like assessment, that's what really stands out. So I would ask a couple of people in the field to review your CV and cover letter.
Okay.
Maybe there's something there. Is there any particular consultancies you're keen on working with?
Yeah, so like you mentioned before, affinity at work, that would be like ideal for me right now, because their work is mainly around health and well-being at work, which is literally what I'm like the most interested in. So and it's also like really evidence-based research. So that's literally everything I'm looking for. So it will be perfect. But I've been also looking at HR roles, like HR advisor, for example. I have applied recently for HR advisor for a hospital,
Mhm.
and that's also a lot to do with well-being at work, because it's a healthcare setting, so the needs of the staff are very much about well-being and health. So I'm not too fussy about the work title. It doesn't have to be like occupational psychology. I just want the right experience that will allow me to learn and that will expose me to what I want to do in the future. Yeah. I think you might be right about the cover letter. I think I haven't spent enough time on it. I feel like I've mastered my CV, and maybe I didn't pay too much attention to my cover letter. So that's what I've been working on recently. And we'll
Excellent.
see how.
By the sounds of it, just how you described it, it sounds
Yeah.
perfect to put in your cover letter. I would also say add something that you will bring to the team, like the strengths you already have. And it doesn't need to be depths of psychology. It can be being organized or really diligent or stuff like that. So what you want to learn and develop, but also what you bring to the table.
Okay.
So another thing is, talking about volunteering, there's actually an organization called Global Organization for Humanitarian Work Psychology.
Oh, sorry, I will just write it down. Can you say that again?
Oh, it's in the chat.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And yeah, they have a LinkedIn group and probably a web page. So it's all about application of Occ Psych for humanitarian purposes, which I find really interesting.
Okay, great.
Also, if you find any well-being consultants, you can always ask to volunteer with them.
Yeah.
So you can just write them a message like, hey, would you be free for a chat? And afterwards you can, during the chat, you can say anything particularly you struggle with or you wish you wanted to do. And they go, well, I wish I was able to organize events and stuff like that, but I just don't have the time. And you can say, well, I can help you with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I should be probably more proactive and approachable.
But saying that, I would only allocate like a set amount of time for this during the day. Let's say half an hour is a cup of tea. So because social media can get a bit addictive.
Yeah.
Another thing is I just popped a link in the chat. So it's an article we wrote with a few resources on looking for your first job, including some videos like we had 4 graduates last year sharing with us how they got their first role in Occ Psych and what they learned from it. So that's on its link. And another thing is, here's another thing I posted. It's the newsletter of Psych Talent. So we send a newsletter every 1 or 2 weeks with all sorts of different Occ Psych roles.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I just want to say that I've been actually struggling to find right jobs myself when I've been searching for jobs previously. Like I found a lot of HR jobs, but I haven't been really able to find a lot of organizational psychology jobs. Except for those advertised on Psych Talent, I've been kind of struggling to find it myself.
In this case, if you go for jobs on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
just look for quite a few terms like the ones we just covered. Let's say, where is it? Oh, there also a list. I'll pop in the chat, but one sec. Share. Where is it? Share screen. This. I would just search for those terms. Also, even looking for, let's say, occupational psychology, business psychology, so when looking for psychology jobs, it's also important to use all 4, because even if you look for UK jobs, some companies still call it industrial psychology, because if the HQ of that company is in the States,
yes, okay,
they still might call it industrial. Like I think Higher View, for example, was looking for IO psychs in UK. So just even broadening this out, using terminology from here, I would also look at analytics, data, if that floats your boat.
yeah.
I think there's never been so much value in Occ Psych jobs, but it still can be a bit hard to find. And on LinkedIn, another thing I would suggest, sort by date. So whether you look at the Psych Talent hashtag or Occ Psych roles on the job board, sort by date so you get the freshest at the top.
So can I just ask you one more question? Do you think that LinkedIn is the best place to be looking for jobs in organizational psychology?
From my perspective, yes. Because let's say if you go to LinkedIn right now and click jobs and click search and you type in occupational psychology and just click, you get 393 hits in United Kingdom alone. If you type in industrial psychology and click worldwide, so let's say worldwide, you get 4,926 hits.
Okay. Yeah, I've been looking for like different job boards, and I've been looking for recruitment agencies, but I found them with a waste of time, to be honest. Yeah, I think I'll focus on LinkedIn then.
Yes, so you get so many roles. That's the key thing. You get so many different roles, and the key thing is that look through the roles. And if you find something interesting, even look like Lexic is right now looking for chief occupational psychologist. But if you find what they do interesting, like neurodiversity and all that good stuff in that regard, contact them. Because they might be looking for a junior psychologist 2 months from now, and they think, oh, this person reached out and they seem really keen, so we'll contact them back again.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've been just like really inefficient with my job search so far. I think I've been looking at the wrong places probably.
You've been doing your best, but I'll
Thank
ask
you.
you this. Did your university give you a class on how to make the most out of internet job search?
No.
Exactly. So you're doing the best you can. So give yourself a pat on the shoulder.
Thank you.
And look for volunteering opportunities. Also,
Yeah.
with smaller consultancies, I would suggest potentially contact the founder directly, such as the work psychologist is currently looking for a paid internship. They finally made it paid after running it for years. Great. There's more paid internships now, more than ever. Just contact Sarah Jane Last.
Okay.
And just say, look, Sarah, I find what you do at Work Psychologist fascinating. Read their website as well. Quite often people don't even read the website of the organization. And like, take some keywords from it. This is what you specialize in, like assessment coaching. I would love to talk to you about the internship or one of your colleagues. So give them an option to refer you to somebody else. Because most of applicants you see, for example, I had a colleague of mine who runs a consultancy. He said, I made a mistake. And I go, what? I allowed quick apply for my job application. So he posted the role and he literally had hundreds of applicants just clicking apply without cover letter, without anything. So even when you look at like, how many applicants there is for this role on LinkedIn, and it can say hundreds, and you go, oh, well, I have no chance. But actually, most of them can be completely crap as far as applications because they didn't even write cover letters or anything. So,
yeah.
And by just contacting the person, you can make yourself stand out.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think I definitely need to work on my cover letter to make it really tailored for the job I'm applying for. I think I was maybe too generalistic before.
That's all right. I mean, would it be helpful if we do a workshop for you guys on CVs and cover letters specifically?
Yeah, I think so.
Anybody else would find that useful?
It will be really useful.
Brilliant. So we have a topic for our next one, probably in a month's time, so end of May. You'll get an email. I'll email you all through Eventbrite saying, here's the next event. So in about 2 weeks' time, await an email with the details of the next event.
Yeah, that would be great.
Anything else on your mind at this point?
No, no, I think that's all now. Yeah, I think a workshop would be great.
Excellent, and we can definitely explore that.
And thank
also,
you
just picking up on a comment in the chat, Aina, hopefully I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Could you just expand on those points?
Sorry, sir, could you repeat or explain the points, is it?
Yeah, just kind of just voice that comment because it's wonderful. And the question.
Okay, can. It's okay. Thank you so much for taking my question. Also, I have 3 questions actually. I'm so sorry if it's a bit lengthy. So the first one is, I was kind of curious about how do I know if I'm truly passionate in this field? Like, does the interest in self-development and using it as a way to develop others a key in this field? So that's the first question. Like, is it okay to consider that as a interest as well? Because I really love to read self-development books, non-fiction books, and sometimes I notice some of the books they take from psychology as well. So yeah. And maybe I start with that question first because I think the other question, I am scared if it's a bit lengthy and stuff.
I think it's a beautiful question.
Oh,
because it's what you're interested in. How do you know you're truly interested in it? I suggest that to me in psychology, the key thing is if we look at the name, psychology, and the psyche stands for the soul or the individual light within, depends which Wikipedia you're interested in. Ology comes next. Or if you look at psychometrics, psyche comes first, metrics comes second. So with us, if you put the individual experience first, if you're curious and compassionate, or compassionately curious, as Gabor Mate says, about people's human experience, that's wonderful to have that. And I think that's a really good motivation. That curiosity of, how do you see the world? How is it working out for you? And it can be translated into self-development, or coaching, and or therapy, etc. And also giving you time to mature and develop, because it's not, let's say, if you do occupational psychology, you'll do it for the rest of your life. You might do occupational psychology first, then get interested in clinical psychology. Or we have somebody on the call who did clinical psychology first, got interested in occupational psychology. I work with a colleague of mine. She's probably in her 60s. She's a chartered occupational, chartered clinical, and been a therapist for about 40 years. And we work together with couples as a pair. And psychology is a vocation. Your interest will grow and develop as you do, and just allowing them to do that. And I think one of the most wonderful things about occupational psychology is you can create a role as unique as you are. And but it's a lifelong affair, if that makes sense.
I understand. Okay, thank you. For the second question, I really appreciate the answer. Thank you so much. For the second question and the third one, I'm curious about, I'm going through my internship in the future. I'm wondering, like, is it better to intern in online setting, but it's like a broad company, so maybe they really specialize in business or IO psychology, or a HR company, but in an offline setting?
I would suggest depends on the company and depends on your interest and how much connection you feel with them.
Okay.
Because if it resonates really well with you, it doesn't really matter if it's online or in person. And if you don't like them, it also doesn't matter if it's online or in person. You don't like them and you don't find it interesting.
All right.
I
Okay.
think doing internships online, that allows you global reach. And I think that's also really interesting.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you. And the last question is, okay, when it comes to learning an internship, what keywords should I look out for that is like, okay, this keyword shows that it's a really game changer for me to learn in the internship, for example?
So which particular areas you want to explore further right now about occupational psychology? And I would just look for that, be it well-being, psychometrics, or what have you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Oh, that's all right. And I'm just going to pop a couple of things here, which might make it a little bit easier. So here is a playlist of a dozen interviews with different people who went into HR, mental health, assessments, engagement surveys, or selling psychometrics and business development. And this is a playlist of just the interviews. So just check them out. If any of those resonate, it might give you more of an indication of the day-to-day life. And we also have a question from Shivani about BPS or CAPD. So with BPS, you have a chartership. So it's called stage 1 and stage 2. Right now, it's a little bit confusing because they're redoing the chartership. So we don't know how it's going to look like. But if you're interested about getting chartered in UK, I just popped a video in that will hopefully explain quite a few things. And so a colleague of mine, David, just basically did this video explaining how to get chartered. CIPD is a qualification for HR professionals. So if you go to HR, CIPD is really important. But chartership, how can I put it? Some companies really value it because, let's say, if you're a company working a lot with civil service puts a real, or government, UK government, they put a real accent on you being chartered. Most other companies don't know chartership exists because most other people say, when you say I'm an occupational psychologist, they go, I'm an occupational therapist. So slightly different. So they don't particularly know about it. There's also now Association for Business Psychology, which has their own certification program. So like now there's 3 options. But I would say like it doesn't particularly matter, because if you join as a graduate, companies who really care about chartership will pay for your chartership and help you develop. Another thing which has been quite recent, now in UK at Birkbeck, you can get a PhDs that will give you chartership. Because before you got PhDs which only gave you the BPS chartership, but there's a second layer of chartership. I know it's confusing. It was healthcare professional councils, or HCPC. And before, if you just got a PhD, you could get the BPS, but you couldn't get the HCPC, so you couldn't be chartered fully. But now with the PhD from Birkbeck, you can get the full chartership with the BPS and HCPC. So if chartership is your thing, there's several ways of doing it. Join the consultancy that will pay for your chartership and help you get it. Doing a PhD at Birkbeck, hopefully there'll be more universities soon. And also doing it independently, but it's a bit expensive and you need to get different experiences and it's a bit of a headache. CIPD, check out their website. I'm not really aware how to get that qualification, but I'm sure you can. But yeah, does that answer your question, Shivani?
Yes, Nikita. So because even I was going through researching about all of these things, and it's genuinely confusing because especially with psychology, it sort of overlaps with the HR profession as well, like organizational psychology in particular. That's why to go for BPS or for CIPD, and plus it has a lot of different names, like you said, it could be psychometric, it could be employee well-being. So it could fall in any category or industry or department, to be honest. So in order to get that right, and for example, like you said, it's essential for government that they have that qualification. It's sort of mandatory to be there. So that's why it's all a bit confusing, and not a lot of information is easily understandable on the internet. So yeah.
Absolutely. And it all costs money.
Yeah,
so
true.
It's confusing and expensive, which is not the best combination.
Right, absolutely. I was actually looking at a lot of jobs as well as, graduate schemes where they have, they do offer you that qualification along with your, let's say, your graduate scheme. But otherwise, absolutely, it's extremely expensive. So is it better to, if you're getting it with the job, or let's say the graduate scheme, is it better to go on with the qualification, or if you have to pay externally, you can just, ignore that qualification and,
Well, in the beginning, so what qualifications you have right now?
Currently a graduate in psychology and going to be pursuing soon in work in organizational psychology.
A master's.
Yes, master's.
Great. So what I would do is that I would just basically, this is one of the mistakes I often find students make. They don't consider themselves to be a part of the profession until they graduate.
Right.
So, but you're already a part of the profession. So going to events, having chats, having connections, you can already start doing that.
Okay.
And you can already start applying for internships. So I think it's more about getting as much experience as you can in the field while doing your MSc, rather than necessarily paying too much attention to other qualifications, because you already have a psych undergrad and you have a work psychology MSc coming up. To me, that sounds like enough qualifications on your plate at this moment.
Yes, I'm currently actually working. This is my gap year, so I'm working in HR. So it may be one 1 year soon. So I was just wondering what exactly qualifies, you in the UK to, get on track with your career in this profession.
Well, to be honest, is that I'm not an occupational psychologist. I tried chartership, wasn't for me. And I specialize in psychometrics. So I'm a psychometrician and I'm registered with the BPS, etc. But in order to be a psychometrician, I could have just attended the 3-day course.
Because that's like my future, like long-term career goal is like HR analytics, to be precise, people analytics. So that interests me a lot. Of course, down the line, not, immediate, but so that's why I was wondering if I want to be qualified for that role, do I need to have any qualification in the meantime?
You can just ask the people already in that role, what qualifications would you recommend?
Okay.
And if you do decide to get qualification as a student, always ask if there's a student discount.
Oh, right. I think that's extremely important point.
Oh, and in the future, if you go for any qualifications, always haggle. Never accept the first price.
Okay, so we have to basically bargain our.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I'll definitely try to connect with people in that particular field. Thank you.
Oh, happy to. As far as Ina's question about clinical and occupational, I'm afraid there isn't any resources I came across. And it's pretty sad because we have a clinical psychology branch, occupational psychology branch, educational psychology branch, and we forget why we call branches. We're part of the same tree. And how we can collaborate together, especially in spaces like mental health at work. I would just look for mental health at work, honestly, to see as an opportunity to collaborate between clinical and occupational. And yeah, I know somebody who's done both. And I also run events with a clinical psychologist and a therapist quite often. His name is Jonathan Baines from a company called Headrock. And you have a few recordings on our YouTube channel. So I'd recommend attending those as well. And just drop me a line on LinkedIn saying you'd like to know more about occupational and clinical. So every time I have an event, I'll pop it over to you. So hopefully that will allow you to gather more information. And now, Mariana, I'm noticing there's a unicorn behind you on a rainbow. Any particular reason?
Well, there are about 10 toddlers screaming right now. So if you hear anything, I really apologize. I'm not at home. I'm babysitting my nephews and nieces, but I just have, that's hence the unicorn. I have a quick question. I found a few masters in Europe in occupational psychology, but they're not recognized by the UK. So do you think it's worth pursuing, I don't know, doing a, because to be honest, the reason why I'm not doing a master's in the UK is because it's extremely expensive. So in the Netherlands, for example, is only 2,000, but the master is not recognized in the UK. So do you think it's, I don't know, I would like to hear your perspective on.
I would suggest that a master's can be better than no master's. And a thrifty master's, which doesn't cost as much, is better than a super expensive one. And third, BPS policies might change. So it might become recognized that they might not care so much about it. This is what's really interesting because they're now voting to not be so rigid about what qualifies as experience, what qualifies as, enough education.
Yeah, because it seems to be the same.
Yeah, it's just 5 times cheaper.
Yeah.
So, and it's probably taught in English as well.
Yeah, it is.
Exactly. So, I mean, I would keep my options open. And because nobody knows how the world is going to be. So being too UK focused can be also a bit problematic.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And also finding out, is there a European version of chartership you can get based on that degree?
You can, yeah.
Well, then you can potentially.
Just the UK.
Well, so the UK might not recognize the degree, but can you convert from a European chartership to UK chartership?
I think you can.
So you can just basically then get chartered in Europe and then convert your chartership to UK and then you charter
Right.
those places.
Right, got it now.
So plus it's 5 times cheaper. Plus then look at the prices of chartership in Europe and what it will entail. Maybe the chartership is also cheaper.
Yeah. Thank you.
And because of these big companies like Big Four, they have offices now everywhere. And therefore, you can start working in Europe, you can move to UK office, or there's a lot more mobility.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, there's a job available in Occ Psychology space. Absolutely. Just type in organizational psych. Let's check this out on LinkedIn right now. Jobs, organizational psychology, organizational. Sometimes you need to spell it with a Z if you want the American jobs. Organizational psychology, United Kingdom. I'm finding 167. Like, for example, Oliver Wyman is right now looking for organizational effectiveness. Multiverse is looking for industrial organizational business psychologist. Kingston University has places in people space. SHL looking for a scientist. APS is looking for a business psychologist. And now King's College is looking for a lecturer in organizational psychiatry and psychology. Yes, that going back to point by, one moment, Aina, check out the course in King's College on organizational psychiatry and psychology. I think that could be a nice little mix of clinical and occupational.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you for a wonderful question. I love it when people have questions about combining different fields of psychology together, because I think that the future, we have so much to learn from each other as psychologists, as HR, L&D professionals, but we just keep doing our events, which are a little bit isolated sometimes.
Can I just say something about what you said about King First? Because I literally just graduated from this course.
Oh, so, fantastic. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so if you're looking for some, I would say, I mean, it gives you like the basic idea of clinical psychology. There is one module called Basic Mental Health, which is shared with students who are doing clinical psychology. And this module is just great. The professors are amazing, but it won't give you the full knowledge and experience that you would need to do actually clinical psychology. So
okay,
yeah.
Thank you, Nikita.
So it's a little bit of a
welcome
taster.
everyone. So I'm Callum.
So it's a little bit of a taster.
Yeah, it's more of a taster, because this course is basically focused on mental health and well-being at work, and the theories and approaches how to improve it, and through improving mental health and well-being to improve productivity, retention, minimize absence, and all of those factors that matter to employers, to organizations.
Mm-hmm.
But it won't give you qualifications to work in clinical psychology.
Or occupational.
I mean, no, it will, well, it's more about occupational psychology, I would say.
So it's an occupational psychology with a little flavoring of clinical.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. That's another key thing. Contact students and graduates of the courses you're interested in. So Maria, if you're interested about that course, I believe it was in Netherlands or Luxembourg, contact students there and ask how the course is going.
Also, one more thing. This course won't give you ability to be chartered as well, if anyone is thinking about it. Because I thought it will, and when I applied for it, it said that it's BPS approved. And later on, when I accepted the offer, they removed it, and they said that basically it's in line with BPS, but I don't remember how they worded it properly, but basically it turned out it won't give you the rights to be chartered after all.
And do you want to get chartered?
I did want to, yes. That's one of the reasons why I went for it. But at this point, I'm not really too bothered. I spoke to many people, and a lot of people said it doesn't really matter, to be honest.
Absolutely. It's just also check out the rules on BPS might change in the next 6 months.
Yeah, there are actually not many universities that offer you the right course to be chartered. There are only like few in UK.
I would highly recommend checking the BPS website. for accredited courses list.
Yeah.
And yeah, just check that it's accredited properly, because they can say it's certified, recommended, but is it like accredited?
Exactly. It's a bit confusing. So yeah.
I know, isn't it fun that we work in a field all about, you know, making things easier for people and life easier in a way, and we make it so even difficult to get into it.
Yeah, definitely.
So is there any particular roles you're looking now for, or are you already got a job, Carolina?
No. So like I said before, I'm looking for a job and I'm struggling to get an interview right now. So yeah, I'm looking for. I think I would like to be chartered eventually, but first, I would like to find a job and get the right experience and the knowledge. And then maybe one day I will think of the ways how to be chartered if I want to. But at this stage, I just want to get experience. So I don't really think about being chartered right now.
Absolutely. It's eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
Perfect. So talking about eventually, so good people. Would you fancy one more breakout room before we close, just to meet a few more colleagues? I get 2 thumbs up. That's representative. So I'll create new breakout rooms, recreate a few less. Let's create, let's say 7. Excellent. So just a 10 minutes chat, and then we'll come back and just close off. So yeah, and it's an opportunity to meet a few more people, connect with them, and just reflect on the session. If anything in particular stood out for you, or anything in particular that you found useful, anything you'll do differently. So it's a bit of a reflective space as well. And otherwise, see you in 10 minutes. Should be getting an invite now. Let me just pause the recording. Tosan, you seem to be smiling. Are you looking at a cute cat video or anything in particular?
No, Nikita. First of all, I was going to say, I think I sound like you today. I don't know what's in the air. I feel, I don't know, the hay fever or whatever it is. I'm just sipping on lemon and ginger tea all day. But yeah, I was smiling because I got to meet someone in the breakout room. I mean, I met 3 nice people, but one person in particular and I were in the same boat, studying for a master's, going through the same things, you know, so it was good kind of like talking about courses and the content of the course and going into next semester, because I'm going into my next term now, where I'm doing selection and assessment. I did it before in my previous master's, but I didn't really think much of it. And in my head now, I'm really thinking about psychometrics and selection and assessment and thinking maybe that's where I want to find myself in. So I don't know, I'm still there.
Also, fantastic that you met somebody in the same boat as you. And the key thing is, if you want to have a chat about selection and assessment, just let me know. Always happy to talk psychometrics.
Definitely, thank you.
Perfect. I'm just kind of curious, just to hear from you good people, either in just unmute yourself or just type into Mentimeter. What were the key takeaways from today for you? What was useful? So you can either type it in or just unmute yourself. That I'm not done. Would you mind expanding on this? Oh, that I'm not alone. Sorry, just I have a smudge on my monitor that it looked an A turned into a D. Yes. The key thing is, yes, not to lose hope. You're really not alone in this, though ironically it can feel quite lonely. But the key thing is that there's a lot of people going through the same as you. And another key thing is that most of us in occupational psychology, unless you were ridiculously lucky, struggled to get our first roles. Most of us really did. So therefore, when you reach out to professionals in the field, they can be so helpful because they know how hard it is, because they know how hard it was. So therefore, you're really not alone. Not to lose hope. Anything else? Yeah, there's a lot of options if you know where to look. Maybe universities can give you a better idea of where to look. Personalization of career, absolutely, based on your passion in the field, and also allow your passions to change. What you find interesting now, such as selection assessment, can be quite different in 5 years' time, and that's okay. Yeah, rejection, yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to hurt as much. And last but not least, I just want you to reflect on this item, because when you're looking for jobs, when you are studying, it can be tough. It's the third year of the pandemic. So just to make it a little bit easier for yourself, is there anything you can do for yourself after this call? So it can be, you know, reading a book or going for a walk or talking with the colleagues or connecting with people in the same boat as you. Just anything that you can do for yourself to make it a little bit nicer as an experience. Broaden my job search, connect more. Oh yeah, this one, this rings true. Like I need to constantly remind myself I can't control everything, though it can be a bit difficult. Connect with other people, not to be as hard on yourself. Patience is important, because you never know what the next day brings. Ask for feedback, because you don't need to agree with it. People giving you feedback might be wrong. It's not like, you know, they have some sort of divine insight into human condition. They're biased as anybody else. You don't need to say, oh, this is me. Yeah. No, they might be wrong. But if they tell you something and you're just like, and they say, you're like this, and inside you go, no, I'm not. Ask them what behavior you showed, which gave them the impression you're like this, because that could be quite interesting. So not give up yet. Yeah. And it can get a bit dark sometimes. And, you know, it's a tough world out there, especially now. So do ask for help. That's another key thing I would say. Reach out to your family and friends when you're feeling blue and just say, you know, I'm really just tired of this job search. So ask for support. Cool. So good, people. Thank you so much for your participation and all the wonderful questions and thoughts. There was another point. Stop being too hard on yourself. Yeah. By the way, we recently did a talk on this particular subject. It's called Burnout and Perfectionism. And we had two wonderful therapists, Jonathan and Michaela, sharing their thoughts. And I'm just popping up the link in the chat. So you might want to explore that. So good people, thank you so much for coming. We'll hopefully do this thing every month. And thank you for all your insight, all your thoughts. And anything anybody wants to say before we close?
Thank you so much. This has been really helpful and motivating. And I'd really look forward to more such sessions with more such people.
Yeah, because it is a nice field. There's nice people in this field. We're attracted for nice reasons for it. So just connecting with them and having a chat. And by the way, on 2nd of June, we have if you have any research you want to present, we have a little symposium we run every quarter for students to present their research or just to listen into other students presenting their research. So if you want to present, drop me a line. I'll put you in touch with Eloise who runs it. Wonderful person. And yeah, so it also provides you an opportunity to present your research and see what other students and graduates are researching. So that will be our next event. And after this, there's going to be the CV and cover letter workshop. Thank you so much, everybody. And be in touch and take care of yourselves.
Thanks.